Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hot Takes Valorant Edition this week, which means Zach is back again. Zach, how's it going? How have you enjoyed the busy weekend?
Three VCTs simultaneously, lots of Valorants, lots of sleep deprivation, but really good weekend overall. I think we finally have some new and old champions alike for all the regions, and kind of have an idea of what like champions is gonna look like this year in terms of like the teams going there, but also just the caliber of teams that are heading there this year. And I think this is having watched all three regions together. I'm very excited for champions because everybody looks to be really good.
Sure. And I was lucky because you just did all the sleep deprivation for me, so I just woke up and you'd done all the hard work through the night while I was sleeping like a baby, so that was nice. Um, yeah, let's go through some of these finals then. If you got a preference, which one do you want to start with? Any of the three?
I mean, I'm a Pacific biased person, so I'll probably always just say
Yeah,
Pacific
yeah, let's start there then, shall
if you
we?
ask me that.
Um, of course. So, there we go. Paper X are Pacific champions, beating RRQ 3-1 in the final. I suppose, yeah, I suppose this. Actually, I don't think any of the finals are really like very surprising. I feel like each of the three had like a clear favorite, and all the favorites won. Um, but yeah, it's nice for PRX to kind of take that momentum from Masters as well, because obviously they had rocky times in Pacific, even despite the Masters win, and it seems like they're just like steadily a top team now. What did you make of their run of the weekend?
Well, I think that this weekend, or actually this whole playoffs, they've been looking pretty incredible. I think throughout the whole playoffs, they only dropped one map in the grand finals to RRQ. So I think it was one of the, even if it was the weakest run of the other two regions comparatively, 3-1 was still like a very strong showing by Paper X, even if some of those maps were close. I think that throughout the whole year, like you said, Paper X has had like a really nice journey because at kickoff, they didn't make it to Bangkok, and at Toronto they barely made it. Like they were the last seat. They like slipped in by the skin
Yeah.
of their teeth. And at Toronto as well, right? Like they had to fight through the group stage, make it to the playoffs, and then win it out. But since then they've been able to kind of keep that momentum, and I think that they're since before Toronto they made a roster change as well. That's slotting in super well, and I think I recently saw a statistic during the finals that said 4 out of 5 out of Paper Rex's members have crossed 2,000 kills in VCT Pacific. So yeah, that's the kind of veterans we're dealing with, and I like how they've gone from the underdog and everybody's favorite team to root for, but at this point, like they're everybody's favorite team to root for and the favorites. So as a PRX stan myself, that makes me really happy.
Yeah, not surprised. Um, I'm just wondering now, like, because yeah, that was part of the. It's like obviously part of the charm of Paper X being that they've been this squad that's come together, for so many years and everything. And yeah, especially highlighted by that stat as well, which is crazy. Um, Imagine they go and win champs this year. Then what do they do after that? Do they run it back? Do they break up? Move on to new things?
Probably run it back knowing them. I think that for Piparix in particular, a Champions Trophy would be something really valid like exciting because valuable, exciting, whatever word you want to use, because I think Pacific is the one region that doesn't have a Champions Trophy right now. Like all the other three do, like one way or the other, because Ascend won the first year for EMEA, Loud won for NA, and of course you got EDG winning for China last year. So Pacific's like the one region that doesn't have a Champions Trophy. So it would kind of be nice to have, I think, for them. But I think they would just want to keep winning, dude. Like you want to be like Fnatic, you want to like have a dynasty, you want to win
Yeah,
like as many trophies as you can. Why stop at one?
yeah. I think that makes sense, especially when they've been this team for so long that like feels like they're always right on the edge of being like a global winning team, and then once you've done it, just stick with it as long as it works, and yeah, make
Mhm.
a dynasty, win another champs if next year as well, since no one can do that yet either. Um, yeah, good chance for them for sure. Um, let's have a look at the others then. So we had also over in EMEA, Team Liquid beating Giant X 3-0 in the final. And I guess like 3-0 is like maybe a harsh score for Giant X. None of the maps were like massively one-sided. I think it was like 13-10, 39s, that kind of score. So it wasn't like they didn't get smashed, but at the same time, I saw some of the, I think even on the broadcast, I was like talking about it being like a really close uh, 3-0. But then, I felt like at the same time, you just never ever felt like Team Liquid was not in control of it. Like even a couple of the maps started with a few rounds for Giant X, but like it just never seemed nervy. Liquid always like you just kind of expected it to go their way in the end, and they just pretty much did the job. Like it wasn't nothing crazy. Yeah, they just kind of cracked on. Nats as well was just like on fire the whole 3 maps. He was the MVP in the end,
Weekend.
and it's just nuts like that he still can frag so well while he's the IGL. Like I just can't really wrap my head around it. When you see other like it's funny to have him compared to like maybe if you argue he's like one of the best IGLs maybe in EMEA, and then like his comparison is Bostar, who is just like the most complete opposite, where it's like purely the mental stuff, and you know that's where obviously Bostar gets criticism sometimes, is that like the actual in-game performance is lacking, but it's kind of understood because he's like micromanaging the whole thing, whereas Nats is just in there like more like leading by example kind of thing, and just just killing everyone the whole time. It's crazy.
Still remember like TL's upper final game against BBL, and it was map 3. BBL were winning. They were like 12-11. They had a chance to lock it in, go to champs, and basically this man says, "No, bro, I'll do it myself." At 12-11, gets an ace, pushes it to overtime, gets a 3K in the next round, and then yeah, he just basically carries this
Ridiculous.
whole map. Yeah, pushes BBL to the lower bracket, gets to the grand final, and he does the same thing again. And I think it's very interesting that you brought up this whole concept of a fragging IGL, because I think that that's kind of what you need, because I feel like Valorant is no longer in a state where only 4 out of your 5 players perform. Like that was kind of the case with Optic. That was, well, I don't want to be so hard on Booster, because like while that might have been the case like maybe 3 years ago, I think that since 2023 second half, he's been putting in a lot of work in terms of um, aim practice, for lack of a better phrase. And I think he's pretty ice cold in a clutch, so I don't want to give him too much shit. But yeah, I definitely see your points. I think, for example, the MVP at Masters Toronto was Forsaken, and yes, he had some of the highest stats, but there were also other members on his team who had similar stats. But the man was also IGLing while being like, top frag on most maps. So I think it is possible, especially depending on what you're playing. I think if you're playing like a more sedate role like controller, like especially controllers like Viper or Omen, where you can either be a lurky, nasty player, or if you're just willing to get aggressive. I think there's a lot of versatility in how both of these players play, but also a lot of similarity, because they're consistently like not just making the calls to make sure that their team wins, but also getting themselves in really annoying positions to win the round, like single-handedly a lot of times, which is very exciting to see in a Valorant game.
And I guess like in Boaster's case as well, you can kind of not get away with being that kind of IGL, but like it makes more sense when you've got like Chronicle, Alfier, Kayak, like just all the best aimers possible basically on your team. Um, yeah, it's not
I
quite so bad.
I think Boaster said something about that, like, yeah, I want to make sure that every member on my team is the best that they can be and stuff. And yeah, you want to surround yourself by the best players. And of course, on a team like Fnatic in 2023, especially, like Boaster basically didn't really have to lift a finger, because you got Alpha, you got Kron, you got Leo, you got all of these stars coming in, and then I think back then you had Durka as well. So yeah, I mean, when you have these 4 people fragging their hearts out, you don't really need to do anything as IGL except for give good calls. But you kind of saw how that stopped working towards like champions in 2023. Like, yes, it worked for Tokyo, it worked for Lock-in. Barely. Lock-in was a bit stressful, but we don't talk about that. But yeah, I think overall it's kind of an evolution of how the game is played. And yeah, you just can't have a player who's like dead weight anymore. You have to have somebody who can also put up those stat numbers, because even if you're doing all the calling, but if your stats are abysmal at the end of 3 or 4 or 5 maps, yeah, it's not going to help your team as much.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and I just wanted to highlight while we're on EMEA as well, your interview that you did with Pal over the weekend as well, after BBL got eliminated. Just 'cause it was really interesting to see, like,
Oh, that was heartbreaking.
yeah, to see someone. I mean, for people that do interviews, like doing loser interviews is often like pretty difficult anyway, as like I'm sure any viewers can imagine. Just people aren't often in the mood. They've just been beaten, so they're not very happy. In this case, obviously BBL
Mhm.
had just been eliminated from stage 2, which of course also meant that they weren't going to champs. Um, but
Champs.
I can't remember seeing um, that many interviewees being like this kind of, I don't know, like gracious maybe. I don't know what the word would be even for it. Where he was very open and giving like really interesting answers, but like you could also see that
Hmm.
he wasn't not in a not good mood, but like he obviously was disappointed and with how it happened. I'll give props to you as well for how it's handled, because it was like a very nice interview and a nice interaction. Um, and even kind of asking some, I feel like some of them were like kind of difficult questions, but in a very nice way. So yeah, it's just a really great interview. And he kind of talked about how BBL's team was like basically just made up of these misfits that everyone else had discarded and didn't think could do it at the top level anymore, and then they've kind of bound together
Hmm.
and had that minor fairy tale run, although it didn't quite get over the line in the end. But yeah, I guess it would be nice to kind of see them run it back then as well, because that was one thing you asked him, like, what's the plan now? And I guess it's hard for him to say because of like most players' contracts do run up at the end of this year. But he did kind of say like he hopes to carry on and keep that team together and see how far they could take it. Yeah,
Hmm.
just I thought I'd highlight that. Good
It's
interview for everyone to check out.
I think, yeah, I think he was heartbroken, but I think he also felt like, yeah, there's nothing more to be done at this point. Honestly, shout outs to him because I think that was the one of the few loser interviews I've had. Usually, I think after a loss, people have been canceling left and right. So I can't blame them, of course, especially as a coach, you want to be with your team and stuff. So I get that, but it was very nice of Pal to actually come and do the interview. And yeah, I mean, I think that BBL's story was really inspiring. I'm really glad that he shared it because yeah, like you said, it's a bunch of players who were considered like misfits or quote unquote rejects by other teams who've come together. And it was a bit of a step for BBL as well, because I think that usually they've gone the more traditional Turkish route, but this year they had like a very cosmopolitan EMEA roster compared to usually. And they had a lot of roster changes. They had that coach swap coming in as well. Like Pau started as assistant coach, ended up as like, main coach at the end of stage 1. So a lot of changes for the team, a lot of transitions that they had to work through. But I think in the end, they really almost did put together a Cinderella run, and they just ran out of steam a little bit, according
Yeah,
to his words. They couldn't recover from that loss against Liquid, which I mean, to be fair, is devastating. You're in the upper final, you're like
a
on the
round
third
from
map, you're at match
champs.
points. Yeah, you have like 2 rounds to close it out, and somehow that messes up, and you're in the lower bracket, and you have to play another best of 5. Sorry, a best of 5 after like 3 days of nonstop games. So I can imagine it's gotta be really difficult.
Yeah, there was one thing he said that there was one response he gave that maybe like hinted that there was something else. I'm just trying to find it, but he kind of said about like having some difficulties that they'd had outside of the game, which like I like the obvious one would be just the timing and yeah, like having lost in that manner. But then it was just like the way they lost to GX as well. Like it was just, I mean, they just got totally demolished by GX the day after, and it basically did look like a different team. Which, like I say, it could just be running out of
Yeah,
steam. Um, yeah, I'm struggling to. I don't remember exactly where he said it, but he said something along those lines, like yeah, there was like some
I remember.
reasons we
Yeah,
couldn't fix or
I
something.
think I asked him like what happened and stuff, and basically he said, yeah, we thought we recovered from yesterday's loss because it really sucks to win a game, or sorry, lose a game that we had such a good chance of winning, and we usually recover fine, and felt like we recovered, but then he said there were some external factors as well. I think that was what he said. I don't
Yeah,
remember the
I got
exact
it.
code,
Yeah,
but
so
something like that.
you'd
Yeah.
asked him what went wrong. He said, wait, yeah, he said that first bit. Unfortunately, we lost the game where we were in a strong position to win. That always hurts. Da da da. Unfortunately, we then had external mental challenges to deal with that. Even though we thought we'd then got over, we were hit with them more. And we were then hit with more. Um, and then yeah, said that they didn't quite have enough resilience. Yeah, that was a bit of the interesting part there. We had external mental challenges to deal with, and then we thought we'd got over, and then we were hit with more. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean that could have just been the TL stuff still, I suppose. But
exhaustion or like
um,
the schedule or yeah.
yeah, but yeah, just an interesting little bit he slipped in there that just makes you wonder. Um, let's jump across the pond then.
I do.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, but before that, I just hope that we do get to keep seeing Yampi as IGL because when this year started and somebody was like Yampi's on BBL and I was like, yeah, that's okay. That sounds a bit like weird, but we can make it work. And I think this year he's just been, you're used to seeing Yampi as a opper, from his older days or even these days, you're used to seeing him as like a chambermaid or a jet player or whatever. But even though he still does that sometimes, it's been very inspiring to watch him as an like an IGL playing like more of a flex initiator or flex role, filling in for the team, and I think his arc has been very satisfying to watch over the last few years as a Valorant player. So I hope we get to see more of IGL Yampi.
Yep. Okay, there we go. So yeah, over in Americas then. G2 beating NRG 3-0 in the final. Again, another like
The
fairly
question is, were
one-sided
we
one.
really surprised?
Yeah, once NRG got there, it just kind of felt like a given. Do you think it would have been closer if Sentinels had made it?
Probably, but just because of the fact that these two guys have played each other all year, like poor NRG man, this is the first time they've had like a really deep run this year. So, they haven't had the same practice going up against G2 like Sentinels have had, I think. They have like a much bigger established rivalry. And yeah, but also you need to remember that NRG has like three rookies compared to like G2 who have like the most established veteran team who came through winning Ascension, who has been in VCT, who almost has won a trophy multiple times, yada yada. So it was always like a bit of a, underdog versus
Yeah.
established team kind of fight heading into the finals. But I do think Sentinels would have done a little bit better just because they also have that experience, but you never
Especially
know.
it was like out of order timing for NRG for Leaf to come back and then just come back and be like in perfect form immediately as well. It was almost like they'd been just letting
That
him
was
chill longer than he
insane.
needed, even. And like it felt like he'd been ready. It didn't feel like he was just coming back and warming up or nothing. Um, yeah, that was pretty funny.
It was pretty wild because I remember seeing that somebody from G2 tweeted like or said right after the game like they weren't sure he would return until a few days before the game itself. Like they were still planning to have like maybe base slotted for a lot of the playoffs, but Leaf finally got like the green shit of help, and I guess the doc finally said, okay, you can go play video games again. You're free from purgatory. And Leaf just took that personally. He was like, you know what, bro, Baby Bay has been farming up some stats. He's been looking good. I gotta make sure I don't get replaced, etc., etc. But like jokes apart, yeah, it was absolutely amazing to see, especially I think during that grand final. What was that map number two? Ascent? Yeah, my boy was farming on Ascent. He had no chill. He had no chill that game.
What do you think? What do you think was Sen's issue then to have not got on there? Because and I'll highlight another interview. So you interviewed Bang. I think this was right after they'd been eliminated, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he was not as in quite, I think, as um introspective
Sad
mood
state.
as Powell was. Quite as yeah,
I
quite as
mean, they
poignant.
made it to champs. They don't have to worry about their year
True.
being over. In his defense,
Yeah.
so
But yeah, he clearly wasn't. I don't think he was a very happy bunny. Um, and yeah, he'd said, well, we had it in the title quote, but see where if we can find it. Here we go. So, yeah, against LRG, he said we kind of crumbled. Just did not play at all. Said we talked about it, but we just have really good days or a string of really good days, and we play incredible. Everyone understands what they're doing, and everyone's on the same page. But our bad days are really bad. Everything feels off. Nothing feels normal. We'll have a few rounds that go our way, but it felt like this was one of those days today. Really, another really bad day for us. And he said their game against G2 that they'd lost before was also a very bad day. Um,
hmm
so I don't, yeah, I mean, how do we unpack that? So, I mean, the thing of, and this is like a general talking point I've seen about just like how people do analysis, that when you've got a team that just randomly has a loss, like there is the thing of like throwing it away as a bad day, like, and using that term just, and I guess the criticism being that it's not really analysis, like why did they have a bad day? What makes a bad day happen?
hmm
But at the same time, like I feel like you do see it sometimes where there'll be a team that could have a whole tournament where they're completely fine every game, and they might have just had one match in there that they lost, and it just seems like there's no explanation for it. I think the issue is if that's happening frequently, and then I feel like it's not quite the same. Not quite the same excuse to just be like, well, these are, we just had another bad day. And to be fair, I don't think he's like saying it as a way to shrug it off. It seems like there's something deeper there, where he's just saying we just have these really terrible days. But that's really that seems really odd to me as well, because like Kaplan as the coach, he comes across to me as a coach that is tuned in on the mental side as well. Like he seems like very mature and empathic. I don't know which version it is. And yeah, it just seems. I feel like if there's any team that wouldn't have like the random highs and lows, I feel like it would be like a Kaplan-led team. So yeah, it was a bit confusing for me to see that. A bit surprising, really. Yeah, what did you make of their exit and Bang's comments?
Well, I think that against G2, it just seemed like G2 had their number better in that series. Which, I mean, to be fair, they've been playing against each other all year at this point. So I think, despite it being a kind of dominant showing, I think, what was it, 13-8, 13-9, something like that. Like, it was a 2-0, I remember. I don't remember the map scores, but it was a pretty clean showing from G2. And I think that for Sentinels, they didn't really have to worry because they were already locked in for champions. So even if they get eliminated, they can just go back and watch some VODs and do some preparation, head to Paris early. All that's there. But I think that even if they did go down, I think that at least their focus seems to be more like, okay, now that we're out of Americas, what can we do for champs? How can we make sure that we win champs? And I think that they're one of the few teams that seems to think of themselves as their, or not even a few teams, like a couple of teams at least at this point, at least four of them that I've interviewed have said that, like, yeah, our biggest enemy is ourselves. We gotta work on ourselves. We gotta be careful with it. We gotta make sure that we don't make these same mistakes again, etc. So I think that Sentinels is in that mindset, which is kind of good for them. But yeah, in terms of their gameplay, I think honestly they looked pretty good. Just consistency. I think that sometimes there was like a hero for the other team as well. Like their game against NRG, Brock was absolutely slaughtering people. Like you look at the scoreboard and everybody else is at like 40 kills and Brock is just at like almost 70. It's insane. So there's also like pop off performances like that. So
Yeah.
Sen can't really like blame themselves.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because I, I feel like a reason I was partly surprised to hear that as well is because when you feel like someone's saying like, yeah, we have these really bad days out of nowhere, you would expect you'd expect to almost be able to look and see like, oh yeah, I remember when they lost to this team that was like a crazy defeat. That must have been one of those really bad days. You look through that whole season, there's basically not any defeats that aren't against like good teams. Like maybe if you look in stage one, like in kickoff, they only lost to G2. Bangkok, fair enough. Bangkok was like pretty rubbish. DRX and Team Liquid. And then again, those are international teams. Like they weren't exactly bad teams. DRX had one kickoff, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and then in stage one,
Yeah, DRX one kickoff.
I lost to Crew. Like maybe that one could be like a random bad day. Fair enough. Apart from that, again, they only lost to G2. In Masters, Toronto, they only lost to Paper X and Fnatic, the finalists. EWC, like there's a loss to BBL, but I mean it's a best of one loss. I don't feel there's really much you take from that. Plus
I don't
EWC was
really
just a
like
bit all
the
over the place.
EWC format, yeah.
Exactly, with the scheduling and everything,
Exactly.
it's hard to really take much properly from that. And yeah, then in stage two, it was just those last two losses to G2 and then NRG, which again, like you could maybe say is an upset. The day after another, well, 2 days after the loss
Also,
to G2, maybe it's just like fatigue as well.
it's
But
it's
just to me,
it's
there
not
wasn't
just
like crazy losses.
Sentinels. Yeah, no, but also to the last point, Sentinels were on like a downtrend. Like they were like in the doldrums after losing to G2. But NRG, they had like everything. They just qualified for champions. They beat like C9. They beat like a couple of teams on their way. They have like their goal for the year settled. So I think that in terms of things to prove, NRG were definitely feeling like less pressure than Sen because everybody was like, yeah, Sen versus G2 rematch, final, we've got this. Nobody really had that many expectations from NRG comparatively. Like, of course, I'm sure the players wanted to make it to that final and win the trophy. But aside from that, right, you look at the statistics, you look at the betting websites, you look at the analyst desk, everybody was saying, like, yes, Sen are the favorites here. So I think having that curse of being the favorite can sometimes act like a anchor around your neck. It might not help you, it might hurt you more. And I think that might have also been a factor for Sen. Like, yeah, you've been hyped up so much over the year, you're considered like one of America's favorite teams, etc. You can also blame Elizabeth Marchini for this because I remember that every single game that Sen won the stage, she was in the building, and she was not in the building for this particular one. I remember seeing a tweet about this. So you can also blame her if you're so inclined. Jokes apart though, yeah, I mean, it's just a question of who wanted it more that day and who was having a better day. And I think that NRG kind of wins in both those
Yeah,
measures. So
and I feel like in these like playoff weekends, like these times when you are playing like basically back-to-back days, the momentum just can be just so massive. And yeah, when you've got one team that's slightly on a downward trend, and then you've got NRG, who are these like group of rookies that have suddenly found form, and just the vibes are there. Pretty much like what happened with like Wolves on like a bigger scale in Toronto, where you're not expected to do much, and then the more times you win, the more momentum you get, and it just rides on from there. And then also, I guess maybe to go back and maybe give Kaplan credit in terms of like these bad days. If they are having these really bad days very often, then also maybe they're just like being able to mask it and win regardless, even if there are these bad times as well. So I guess that's another way to look at it. And then yeah, there was one other region as well, of course, that has finished up. I think it was the week prior that that China had
mhm.
finished. So it wasn't quite. It could have been an even busier weekend, and you could have had even less sleep.
I am so
So that was
grateful.
lucky.
I am so grateful that China always happens early because, dude, watching three regions simultaneously it leaves me barely any time to sleep. If China was happening the same weekend, yeah, I don't think I would come out alive. So I am so grateful that China finishes earlier every time. Every single time. Like everybody's like, oh no, competitive integrity, viewership. What about people like me and Sliggy who watch every single tournament? We need sleep. Thank you,
Yeah,
China,
I
for
feel like
keeping them
you've
a
got
week
the
away.
same
Like seriously.
you got the same sleep schedules, haven't you?
Sleep
Because I'm sure I
deprivation.
saw him say that. I think it was on Plat Chat maybe that like he does like the 4 hour block and then watch games and then another 4 hour block of sleep. Fuck that. No, no, thank you.
I feel him so deeply. Like I usually watch his stream, I watch him like, he's finishes Pacific and then he takes a break and then he turns on EMEA and then right when EMEA finishes and he starts, bro doesn't even get a break. It goes straight from game 2 into NA. He
Yeah,
doesn't take a break. I don't know how he does it. And then he's up again in like 5 hours to watch Pacific again. Like what the heck?
unhealthy.
It
I
is
think it's
wild.
probably
Like so much
how he does it.
respect. Yeah,
Um,
I can attest to it. It's not a very good idea.
well then, let's see the results then. So we had Billy are the champions, beating Dragon Ranger
We're still back.
3-1 in the final. EDG are EDG back as well? I know they only finished third in the end, but nice to see them like back on a somewhat of an upswing and getting back to champs as well.
Mhm.
Um,
I think that
yeah,
I'm excited for EDG because they won last year, so they have a chance to get that two-peat champions, something that nobody has really done. Like yes, Fnatic have won back-to-back trophies, but they haven't won a champions. So EDG have that under their belts, and
yeah.
I'd like to see that again this year.
I feel like it's just for storylines sake, the sake of the storylines. Like it is obviously way better to have the defending team there to defend it. Um,
Hmm.
I sometimes wonder like maybe they should just get an automatic place the next year, but then I know
Mm.
I mean, it's obviously possible then a team could just completely turn to shit and then turn up to champs and just be like a complete waste of time there as well. Is of course possible, and then it just means there's one less thing to play for the whole year. But that's some stuff we could get into in a few minutes, I think, as well as the
Hmm.
qualification process. I know there was like some criticism in Americas. Um, yeah,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
yeah. Um, Also, just in general, like how it's weighted. This is it's like always a bit of a balance. Maybe we just jump to it because I saw this other post just before we started recording. I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
can see my screen, but it was showing who would have qualified for champs if the rules remained if the qualification rules were the same as last year. and if there were no changes to this year. I don't know what the changes were exactly for like every region, because again, they can all have like their own intricacies. It's mostly the same.
Just I think it's yeah, it's just the stage two versus overall year, I think, because NA considered the whole year and the other regions considered mainly stage two. And the head to head as well. So I think the only change that would have happened. So this is according to last year's, right?
So this is according
So
to last
yeah,
year.
like
So NA would be no different.
NA stays the same, yeah, but everybody else changes a little bit.
So you
Well,
got,
not China, I guess, but
yeah. So I think it's BBL instead of Heretics and Talon instead of DRX.
instead of TRX, yeah. Which honestly, I agree with whatever Imi said. Like, I think C9's coach was the one who brought this up in the first place. And I agree with them. Like, pick one or the other, but make sure that everybody follows the same thing. Because
Yeah.
it's just nice to have like international consistency before a tournament. Like, having just Americas do one thing, like, oh my god, we're so special, is not nice for not just the Americans, but also the rest of the
Yeah.
world. So it's kind of a bad idea for competitive integrity. So I agree with them in theory.
Yeah.
But I think it comes from a personal spot because yeah, it's gotta suck if you're C9. Like any other region, if you're lucky enough to be in VCT China or EMEA or Pacific, you would have gotten in this year. Like it wouldn't have mattered what your game against an RG looked like, but yeah, you're not in any of those other regions. You're
Yeah.
suffering in America. So sad story for C9, but I'm sure MIBR is happy because it was a rough year for them. And personally, I'm just happy we get to see Aspas in another major because it's kind of sad to not see him on the stage. But I also do feel bad for C9. I think that they had a pretty consistent year, very strong stage two, and they look to be more in shape, at least right before Champions, to be very honest. So I can understand why Yumi was a bit put out by that.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, I think like the Aspas factor makes it an easier pill to swallow as like neutral viewers.
That's the only let's be real. Like here's a hot take. Anyone who is outside of Brazil or who is like a personal fan of any of the other players, like I'm pretty sure 90% of the international or 80% of the international community watches this team for Aspas. Like let's be real. It's not even a hot take, I'm sure, but if you want to consider it one, go ahead.
I'll show quickly as well, just to clarify like what the differences were. So basically, what happened was with every region, obviously the two finalists in stage two, they get the first two seeds, and then the third and fourth seeds would go to the championship points. The difference in in Americas compared to the other regions is that in all the other regions, they go for basically the tiebreaker rules. So if two teams have the same championship points, it would go from basically what their results were in the more recent tournaments. So if they had the same championship points across the whole year, the first tiebreaker is who was better in stage two. If they were tied in stage two, it goes to Masters. If either team was at Masters, if they were tied at Masters, it goes to stage one, and so on. If everything was somehow equal, then finally it would go to head between the teams, and so how have they actually performed against each other over the year. The issue in Americas is that it went immediately to head to head. So if two teams were tied on championship points, the first tiebreaker was how well did they do head to head. And basically, it was just turned out that MIBR had a better head-to-head against like C9, and I forget who was the other team that was in there for that fourth place as well. But they had better head-to-head against both of them, which meant that
C9
even
and
though
RG and MIBR was between those three.
Yeah, so even though MIBR have basically been like crap since Toronto and didn't really come back in stage two, they get in anyway because they had done better against those specific teams throughout the rest of the year. And it's like a difficult thing because we had this issue. So back in the day in League of Legends, they had this issue big time where they would have they would used to be split into two stages essentially each year. Most of the qualification would be based on the second one that's closer to the World Championship. But then the first stage, which would be the spring split, did have like some weighting on it, but wasn't usually as much. And what ended up happening is you would have like quite a lot of players that, well, firstly, like there was just less interest in the spring split because you just knew it wasn't as important in the grand scheme of the whole year. And then you had a couple of times where, I remember it happened to Uzi, who was a player in China. A few times he would like basically sit out the first 2 months of the season, and his teams would play with a sub, and he would just come in later in the season. And then it happened with Double Lift in NA, who was like the most
I
famous player
actually
in
know
NA
that
at the
name.
time. Yeah, and he one time like after competing for years was just like, yeah, I'm gonna sit out of the spring split and take a rest and then come back for summer. And kind of everyone just understood, yes, this is the most important one. But then they also had, I remember it was also in NA. I don't know what year it would have been, 2018 maybe, when they first got franchising. 100 Thieves, when they were first formed as a League of Legends team, their first split, their spring split, they came third, I think, in NA in the LCS. In the summer split, they were a bit rubbish, but that initial third place, or maybe they were second place, I can't remember. But that initial split that they did quite well in their like points weighting thing had gotten them into the World Championship, and their form had been crap. They went to World Championship, they were still crap, and everyone complained like, why are we giving them a place for being good 6 months ago? When now they turn up and it's just a waste of time. So I mean, it's like it is a balance, isn't it? Because if everyone understands, I guess it's like maybe different in VCT that where there are just like uh the constant global events after each one. So even like if you do well in kickoff, that's good because it still gets you to a global event. Back in the day in League, it was way different. Like you'd had 2 global events, and one of them only had like 6 teams in it, and you had to win your league to get into that one.
Yikes.
So that
That's worse
wasn't
than
quite.
kickoff. Holy crap.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be like one. Yeah, MSI used to have one team from each region, and then the World Championship would be the bigger one, and that would only happen once a year. So I guess it's apples and oranges to an extent, but a similar kind of thing. Like you do want to give like um some credence to like the earlier results. But I guess the championship points is the point of that anyway. It does give you points for the stuff earlier. Yeah, a bit
Yeah.
difficult, but I think at the end of the day, probably I feel like chances are it's probably just an oversight. Like I can't imagine they would have actively chosen to keep those tiebreakers when everyone else changed it. I don't really see the benefit of keeping that one when everything else is different. It just the only thing that could happen is a controversy because it if it has an effect, people are going to complain for
Hashtag
sure. Exactly. So
hashtag Champions Gate.
yeah. But it got us Aspasta champs, so um, not the end of the world.
Saving,
Anyway.
well, I guess small consolation. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. After our interview with Oxy, I was kind of rooting for him. Like, bro sounded really motivated. Also, like, it's insane how in NA, especially all of these teams with the rookies have been popping off in stage 2. I know we already talked about NA, but I was just thinking about it. You know, C9 was popping off, NRG was popping off. It's kind of interesting. Even EG looked decent during some games, but yeah, I think they need a bit more time to come together. But
Yep.
yeah, I think back to your original points about what happened with the rules. Yeah, I just think it was probably an oversight. Like we were like, yeah, rules worked fine last year. We'll just keep them, and maybe they didn't like cross check with the other stuff. But I'm pretty sure Riot's gonna take it into consideration for next year because this
Yeah,
caused up a decent amount of stink. So I'm
I
pretty sure
imagine
we're
they
not
will.
gonna see this happen again. If it does, I'd be very surprised.
It was also
I'd also
slightly
slightly
unfortunate that
sus.
like for this to end up happening and it to have like some controversy, it basically happened the worst way it could have, where the team also the team that's going to benefit happened to also be in terrible form as well. Like if MIBR had been doing good or on an upswing, you wouldn't feel so bad. You'd be
You
like,
would
okay, fair
talk so
enough.
much shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but the fact that they're like not very good right now, and then they sneak in off the like, if you're C9, it must feel like just even more frustrating. Um, yeah, it actually happened. Funny enough, in League of Legends as well in the LEC, they
Mhm.
I forget what the issue was, but they for this current tournament they're having now, like their summer split, they just changed the tiebreaker rules mid tournament because they realised something
Mid
was
tournament?
yeah, which is its own
Yo.
issues to do that as it is. But like their commissioner came out and was like, "Oh, we've noticed this thing in the tiebreaker rules." I forget what the actual details of it was, but they were like they felt like they had to change it um, as the tournament was going on, or like I think it was maybe like the playoffs tiebreakers before they got into the playoffs, so they hadn't changed something that could have been triggered already, but it was still the fact that it was an ongoing tournament and they changed the rules of the tournament.
Mhm.
Um, so
It's
there you
kind of
go.
wild.
I
Yeah.
think a couple of
Wow.
signs across Riot's titles that maybe like their commissioners or whoever's in charge has to just do a double check. Maybe read through the rules
To be
twice before they
fair,
sign off.
there have been some very questionable calls in VCT, like VCT normal, VCT game changers, challengers. Like My God, there was such a atrocious call that happened in Challengers EMEA last year. Like, I remember, I forgot, I think it was Moose versus Job Life. It was definitely Job Life playing, and they were the ones who got screwed over. But basically, I think there was some kind of player disconnect or something, and they had like a substitute ready to load in, but they wouldn't let him join. And I think there was some issue with rounds awarded. I don't remember exactly what happened because this was last year, but yeah, it completely screwed this team over. Like they were like Ascension favorites, and yeah, they had some kind of competitive ruling in the middle of the game. Which I mean, to be fair, we've had a lot of in Valorant, the exit turrets, and I think there was the GC one where, I mean, yeah, probably showing a middle finger isn't a good idea on stage, but batting a coach before like the grand final isn't a good idea either. That's just me. But you know, competitive integrity, quote unquote.
Yep,
Hopefully it
exactly.
was stable.
Um, let's have a look, shall we, at the champs group draw. So I think this was right after America's final, since it was
Roll.
the last region to finish, and we had the groups drawn out there live. And let's just run through them quickly, group by group.
Mhm.
So in Group A, we've got Paper X, XLG, Giant X, and Sentinels. I feel like if you're not Paper X, you maybe don't hate this group. Like if you're any of the other three, you'd probably feel like the other teams are beatable. I know like Giant X are in like probably more of an upswing than the other two. But then even if you're like Sentinels, for example, and you're on a bit of a downer, you might think, okay, Paper X are playing well. XLG aren't looking too hot. Giant X, maybe they just had a good run of form. Like I feel like the other three would all kind of fancy their chances to get out. Yeah, what do you make of that first group?
Yeah, I feel bad for Sheila Gaming because they're the ones who have to go up against Paper Rex in this group. But I think that in this group there are two clear favorites. You've got Paper Rex and Sentinels. I think that just by virtue of their performances this year, I would say Paper Rex is kind of above the rest, like you said. But yeah, I think if you're Sentinels as well, you're gonna be feeling like, okay, fine, we beat Giants X. It's gonna be cool. I'll probably have to play Paper X then, but you know, it's a difficult group for sure, but not the group of death, I would say. Like it could be
Yeah,
much worse. Because I remember like when they were doing the group draws, when Victoria was pulling out the cards, there was a bit of swapping around going on here because the third team that she pulled out, if I remember correctly, was EDG. So we could have had Paper X. You know, if the same bracket rule wasn't there, we could have had Paper X, EDG, and Sentinels in the same team. But thankfully, XLG was already there, so
yeah,
no EDG here. But yeah, I think two clean favorites in this group, two slightly more underdog teams, I would say.
yeah, yeah. And also,
So
I
it's
guess
gonna be a
like
bit exciting.
when you talk about, especially these kind of like momentum runs that people have in playoffs, it's 2 weeks until champs. So like any of those kind of momentum things, like pretty much you can write them off when it gets to that point, because anything could change obviously with their depending how practice goes and things. So yeah, I think you're right. Like Paper X definitely favourites. Sentinels you would imagine should be second favourites. But if you're the other two,
Mhm.
I don't feel like you're like devastated to be in this group. But there we go. So Group B
It
then.
could be worse. It could
Exactly,
definitely be worse.
exactly. Group B: BLG, MIBR, RRQ, and Fnatic. This one is
So
maybe a bit stronger. I don't know actually. Maybe like the first
I think
bit
it's
tricky
more
on this.
evenly distributed,
Yeah,
like the badass factor here. Because I think in the other groups, Set and Paper X were like the bigger names. Like no shade on XLG or Giant X, but sorry guys, only the other two have trophies. You guys don't have a trophy yet, so I'm gonna give them more credence. But you know, in Group B, honestly, the team that I'm really excited for is Bilibili because China has a couple advantages heading into this champions. Number one, they finished 2 weeks earlier, I think, so they've got all that time to do some nice WOD review, look at the other regions, see what they're doing and stuff. But also China has been looking very interesting this year. We touched upon it a little bit when we were talking about like the representatives who are going to champions, but it's no longer like a one team region. Like if you look at 2023, for example, or even 2024, like EDG was winning everything, stage one, stage two, kickoff, the evolution tournaments in the middle. They were just so consistently on top. And this year it's no longer the case. Like you've got I think XLG won this particular split. I think that another tier two team, I think DRG won a split as well or came very close to it. Kickoff was something else as well. So you've got all of these newer Chinese teams like really coming up to the top and showing that yeah, it's not just EG anymore here. We're here to stay and we're here to like kind of rock out. And even if they haven't done as well internationally, with the exception of Wolves, who had like that deep run in Toronto, I think that for champions in particular, because of the virtue of that extra time, I'm excited to see what they can do. And BLG in particular looked pretty scary. Like their grand finals game, it was an absolute stomp. It was a banger, and it was also a stomp. And in particular, I really want to see like the duelist head to head between YZ and Aspas, because YZ is a man of culture who plays judge a lot, and I would love to see the kind of crap he's gonna be pulling against a team like MIBR, because there was some wild rounds in that final and in the whole of stage 2. Like I don't know how this man keeps getting away with it. He did it like a couple of years ago when they won Ascension. He's like doing it now. He has no chill, whatever. Like not Ascension, sorry. I think it was against NRG. So I'm also very sad that BLG and NRG are not in the same group, because that would have been like fire, 2 years to go. The remnants of the past come forward.
Yeah.
You can give it like almost an anime arc narration.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, at least they got Crashies in there, to try and pick that up. I feel like yeah, someone that doesn't follow China like that closely on a regular basis, I feel like I have to reserve my judgment after Toronto, especially if the Wolves aren't here as well.
Fair enough.
I mean that's the disappointment for all the
That was
neutrals as
sad.
well. Yeah, I'll wait and see for BLG. But yeah, as you say, like I think it's a very close group. Like this doesn't seem like one team is massively above everybody. Like usually you'd think it should be Fnatic, but then obviously they've not been that hot for the last couple of weeks. And again with like the prep time as well now, like things can change so much. And I feel like that for any region to finish earlier, I imagine for China it must be especially good. The fact that Pacific playoffs were still going on as well, like I'm sure they would have been able to get scrims off like any of the Pacific teams they wanted, or that would fancy doing them as
True.
well. Whereas when everything's ended, obviously all the teams going to champs are the only ones that would be scrimming, and then all the other teams are on their break, and that's where it becomes tricky to find like strong scrim partners sometimes. So that would have benefited them massively as well. Yeah, Group C then you got Team Liquid, DRX, NRG, and EDG. This is a
That's the group of
pretty
death. That's the group of death. Like
this is
no
a pretty
question.
stacked group. And I don't, yeah, maybe DRX would be the like the biggest underdogs in there, just off of like form, I suppose. But fucking hell, yeah, this is a tough one, isn't it? Jesus.
It's terrible if you're a fan of any of these teams, and only two of them are making it out. So no matter what, you're gonna have like two of these teams eliminated, which really sucks to see. Personally though, I think TL is probably the front runner in this group, just because of like how informed they've been looking.
Yeah,
They
and
won
consistent as
EMEA,
well, I
they
think.
won EMEA pretty dominantly. Yeah, exactly. And I think they've made every single international this year so far, which is more than you can say for anybody else here. So, I think that it's pretty impressive in that regard, and they're probably favorites looking into this one. But yeah, the other teams, honestly, like a wild card, because DRX, rough stage 2, EDG, rough stage 2. NRG is the only one which has like that momentum coming in from that stage 2 here, because they finished second. But again, like they've got 3 rookies, so it's a big question as to how they're going to be doing in their first international. Because yeah, sometimes rookies pop off. You could be Patman and head into your first ever Masters after like 1 month of playing with the team and win a trophy, or you could just take a few years. So we don't know what the case
Yeah.
is going to be, but it's usually more likely the second than the first, from what I've observed.
Yeah, for sure. I think we like Patman as well. The fact that he's with 4 other players that have been to like 10 international events helps.
That's true. That
If
probably
I
helps.
if I was to give a hot take on any of these or like make a bold prediction, it probably is like NRG to just not really show up. Just from that reason, really, like just having so many rookies and then go to this event, like it can just be overwhelming, and it's not even like a knock on them at all. It is hard, like
Mhm.
when you just don't have that much experience in these kind of things. It doesn't help that that there was no arena, like proper arena final or something for stage 2 in Americas, like we saw with Pacific and China as well, which is its own conversation we can have
Oh yeah,
too,
nothing super.
which is just a bit of a bummer, really. But maybe we'll save that for a few minutes. But yeah, that's my thing. I feel like NRG, like for your first experience in like a different location to be champs
Mhm.
on another continent, Yeah, I feel like it's much more likely we see them pretty much just crumble than go the opposite. I mean, there is obviously the chance that it can just work the other way, where it's like they just don't, they've
You have
not been
nothing
to
to
the scene
lose. You
before,
just
and
go
it's just
stomp.
pure vibes, and they're in an upswing in form anyway, and maybe it goes the other way, but I feel like it's way more likely. We're probably just not going to see that much from them. But yeah, Group D then after that, G2, Heretics, DRG, and T1. Not quite group of death, but also I think
G2
another.
farm.
Yeah, yeah.
G2
I
farm.
think you're right. I think you're right.
Sorry, but that's what I think is gonna happen.
Yes, and
No, but I mean,
I saw. I saw. I think it
I
was
would be
on.
excited to see a G2 versus T1 rematch. That's the one thing I want from this group. I
Yeah,
want to
that's
see
true.
G2
They need
versus
their
T1
revenge.
again. I want revenge. Yeah.
100%. And G2 ruined it as well because I saw. I think it was on ValComp. Like someone just did a collage of all the different stage winners of all the different regions. And literally, apart from
hmm
Americas, it's a different winner for every stage, and it looked really nice that we got all these different champions, and then it was just G2, G2, G2. Just killed
G2.
it. And also, who also ruined that was Team Vitality because they're the one winner from all the regions that
Oh,
didn't get
what
to
a
champs as
disappointment.
well.
What a disappointment.
Yeah,
I was so excited this year for Vitality, when they, yoinked Dirk over from Fnatic and they had Safe and they had all of this. They had Less, they had all of this international talents and firepower. They win kickoff, they look so promising. And yeah, they just disappeared for the rest of the year. That was so sad
I saw.
and disappointing. Like I was legitimately close to being a Vitality fan this year, at least for a little bit. But what did they do?
Yeah, and I saw. I forget where it was. It might have been. No, I think it was like on a Durka interview that was posted on ValComp, and then I was reading the comments, and someone said about a rumor, and this is how unsubstantiated this is. It was a random person commenting on this post about the interview where Durka had said he doesn't know if he'll be with Vitality, and this comment said that there'd been a rumor that they were going to try and re-sign Durka. I forget what the contract situation is exactly. I feel like his contract is ending. Or is due to end about this year. But the rumor was that they would have Durka, or they tried to keep Durka. I think Less is still under contract. I'm just loading up the contract database to make sure I'm not saying anything out my arse here. Yeah, Less is still under contract. Durka is under contract as well, actually, until next year. So they had them locked in.
Nice.
And then Sivov is under contract till next year. And the thought was that maybe they bring him back, and then
He
they would,
was pretty consistent, at least in stage one. Seawolf
yeah,
was pretty good.
and then they would get Chronicle and Leo from Fnatic, and have and also and
I
to
don't
top it
think
off,
Fnatic is gonna sell Chronicle.
well his
I'm a bit
contract's up,
skeptical about
his
that league.
contract is up, so if
Yeah,
he
but
wanted to
I
leave,
don't
he
think
could.
Fnatic is gonna just let him go. Like
Well,
I'm
yeah,
very
yeah, I'm sure
doubtful
they
about it
would
because
try to keep him, yeah.
no, but I mean it made sense for Durka because they had an equivalents lined up, I would say. Like Kayak is basically Durka's aim without the initial experience. So because of the experienced team, they felt confidence. Because I think of all the roles in a team, the duelist role is the easiest to kind of mix it and
Plug
drop
and
players
play.
in because the main purpose of your duelist is to go forward and die. Like yes, if they get an entry, it's good, but the main point is that they take space and they die or they live, but they take space. So it doesn't really matter who you have in that slot as much as your other roles, in my opinion. So I think yeah, Chronicle would definitely be a much harder person to replace because look at what happened to Leo, right? They had to go to a whole ass other region to find a player of the same caliber or of equal in caliber, and then pick him up and bring him here. So, and that was because he got dropped from NRG at the right time. So it was very lucky for Fnatic that they found a championship caliber player and Crashies available at that juncture. Yeah, if Fnatic drop Chronicle, I don't think there's anybody who's anybody who we can really easily say is his equivalent. Because yeah, Kayak, I mean, you were a bit skeptical about it, but he was coming off of MVP from Ascension. He had the data to back him up, and he had a lot of he had big shoes to grow into, so as to speak, which he's done a fantastic job of this year. But I think Chronicle, it's gonna be much harder to find somebody like him. Also,
Yeah.
it's just a flex, we have 3-time trophy winner, Timothy Chronicle on our team. We don't, you want to flex. Fnatic, we have 3 trophies ourselves, but our boy he has 4. He's pretty cool, you want to keep somebody like that.
Yeah, and actually to top off the ridiculousness of that rumor as well, it was that Mini would be the head coach at the end of it too. But I mean, like,
To be fair, Vitality could use him.
yeah,
No shade on the current coaches, but Mini. I'm saying this because I remember for Toronto, I think Victoria, who is the host for Pacific, and also Coach Alex's partner, she was mentioning that she was telling Alex beforehand to fucking get some help and not just do it himself. Because Paper Rex before stage one,
yep.
I think they hired like an assistant coach this year, but they also got some help from Slaggy as well as Mini. Just saying before they went to the Toronto. So they had like Sliggy who watches every region for help. They had Minnie who basically coached Fnatic for 2 years for help. So I think that having him at the helm of a team, or even just having him in like kind of a backup assistant coach, analyst, or even like a freelance coach kind of thing, like what he did for PaperX could be kind of fire. Just having him come in and give some of the wisdom away, because I don't know, man. I like Analyst Mini, but I miss Coach Mini. Coach Mini was kind of a vibe.
Well, he's kind of hinted that he'd come back as well. We've got this tweet he made a couple of days ago. Basically, once VCT finished, once EMEA finished, he said, had a lot of fun this year working VCT EMEA. Thanks to all the talented people supporting me. Big decisions to make for next year. ... And then he said, in the meantime, there might
What
be
is?
some. In the meantime, there might be some coal
Yeah,
that
what
needs
does that
shoveling.
mean?
Which part?
What is this like a British euphemism for something like coal that needs shoveling? Like, what does that
No,
mean?
isn't I think isn't it mean he's going to be helping Paper X again for champs? That was what I saw as the understanding of the Paper X train from Masters.
Oh,
So
that
he's like
kind of coal.
shoveling
Oh
coal on
man,
the
people
train,
still
yeah,
use
to
steam
help it
engines.
running.
Yeah, like yeah, that makes sense. You know what? I'm perfectly on track for this. I love this idea. Of course, I would say that as a Paper X fan, but I am perfectly on track for this idea.
Yep,
Get him, I hope it would be so cool to have PRX Mini. Like FNC Mini is cool, but PRX Mini would be even more fire.
definitely.
Imagine like Alex in the middle and like you've got Mini on one side and Sliggy on the other. You'd be like undefeatable, like in terms of
And
at
then
least
Alex
in
goes
terms
to
of
pick up the
data.
little,
That doesn't
goes
make
up
sense.
to pick up the plushie, and then because Minnie's quite small, you just
His name is Bok. He
a
has a
buck.
name.
Sorry.
This is Bok Splendor.
All right.
Sorry, but yeah, jokes apart, yeah, I can see them like kind of like I've seen Alex like kind of squishing that plushie. That plushie has been through war zones, bro. That plushie has seen things.
Absolutely. Um. Okay, I think we still got a couple of other things. Let me see. Checking what I had on my
Mm.
notes. Oh yeah. This is like not so much related to current VCT stuff that's going on.
Hmm.
But a former VCT, well, not even former VCT, former Valorant team, um, which people might remember from a few years back, in the early days of Valorant, is Guild Esports, who I
Oh
think they
yeah,
went
they
to
had a
like,
GC team that was pretty good.
yeah, they went to a Masters as well, I think, like 2022, with like,
Okay, Leo used to be on this team. I
yeah,
think they had
Leo's
Leo,
Leo's
Safe, and
safe,
kind of a fire team.
Trex I think was on that team as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
Bonkar was there at some points.
Bonkar,
Remember from the
yeah.
interview as well.
I think Bonkar in his interview said like that was the best time of Valorant of his life. Like yeah,
Yeah,
just playing, chilling
like these
before he
open
went to
circuit
coach.
stuff. Yeah. But a few years later now, obviously they've been out of Valorant for a while. But especially anyone connected to like UK esports, especially when these guys first opened, like I saw their name going around all the time. And they have officially closed. Now for people that are like mainly Valorant followers and might have, because this is one thing I saw with the match fixing stuff, where everyone was kind of complaining about like, oh, these, there's no good, like all these orgs have left. I remember there was like a picture of all the different logos of orgs that left Valorant since franchising happened, and Guild was one of them in there. And I remember thinking like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's a huge miss, because kind of everyone that kind of followed this team at all kind of knew that they were just like spaffing money, and it wasn't really anything kind of sustainable. Like they basically what happened was they were formed in like 2020, or like kind of were like unveiled in like 2020 or 2021, and the big thing was that David Beckham was a co-owner, and this was like this
I
massive thing.
remember this.
David
Yeah.
Beckham's in esports, and then it was like, okay, they're gonna be a public company, and they went public like straight away. Loads and loads of millions pumped into it because David Beckham's name was on it, basically. Now, what ended up coming out was
Yeah.
that the way he was attached to it was that he initially had a 5-year deal, a 5-year image rights deal that they were paying him like millions a year. Yeah, over 5
So
years it
they
was
were
going to be.
paying him. He wasn't paying them.
Yeah, so over 5 years he was going to get paid 15
Oof.
million pounds by this org. Imagine how much it costs to run a team, and they're spending 15 million quid to have David Beckham's name on it, and that's like their first payment they've made is that pretty much. So what it was is like they had that, but then he invested like 300,000 back or something like that, which technically made him a co-owner, and that was how they could use him on like all the advertisements. But yeah, basically they've gone through all these different iterations of trying to do different things and spending loads of money all these different ways. And more recently, they'd been like running tournaments. I think like they weren't really like an org in the like the traditional sense anymore. What they'd sort of pivoted to was doing like women's and marginalized gender stuff, like running tournaments on like FIFA and Marvel Rivals and all sorts like that. The bigger issue that's happened, so basically no one like that vaguely really knows their situation was at all surprised to see this. Like everyone kind of knew they'd been spending money for ages. I think they got sold to like a different company last year, and it was said then that they were really like had like no cash. What's happened now that they've closed is that it seems like there are a lot of people that haven't been getting paid for working for them, or haven't been getting paid in full. So one person that was doing work for them recently was Frankie Ward. Obviously, everyone knows as like this really famous talent, especially over in like CS, especially. But I think she does like all sorts of games really. So she was like hosting a lot of these tournaments, and yeah, she's come out saying that that like loads of people hadn't been paid. Like, this is some stuff from a couple of tweets that she made about it. She said, "Honestly, the lies and irresponsible actions of Guild are hands down the most disgusting betrayal of trust I've experienced in gaming, and I've had some bumps on the road. They've not
Wow.
empowered women and marginalized genders. They have financially abused us." She said that they tell people that if you keep working, they'll pay part of your invoice. So they basically say, like, if you want us to pay what we owe you, keep working and we'll pay you some of the money that we owe you. She said that's coercion. They sign contracts they cannot honour. Grant Russo, who used to be their team director back when they were in Valorant, he backed it up, seemingly. So he said that they need to sort out the payment stuff, otherwise it will permanently overshadow the good work that they did do. And then there was this like, there was this story from MZ, who is, I think I remember first seeing her in like the Commonwealth Games. There was like a Commonwealth esports tournament. I think she's like a FIFA, like football simulation player, like a few different games. And she had this story. So she's a transgender FIFA player, or EAFC. And she went there. So they had like a LAN FIFA tournament that she went and attended, went and competed in. And one of their sponsors was Sky Broadband, which actually is like a massive sponsor for like a UK org. That is like a huge company in the UK. Or Sky in general is like an entertainment.
Sky
Like,
News.
yeah, they
Yeah.
do like TV. Yeah, and they're like an internet provider. And so they were sponsoring this event. Sky Broadband sponsored Guild, and their name was all over Guild stuff. So she went to this LAN, and she said that in one of the matches, there was basically lag for her, like from her end. So I'm guessing they were like playing technically on like online servers, but on like a LAN setting. So she said she had like massive lag through this whole game, played shit because it was lagging, and then whatever, I don't know, got eliminated or whatnot. And then, but the thing is, because Sky Broadband was a sponsor, they weren't allowed to say, like, she wasn't allowed to come out and say I was lagging because their sponsor is an internet provider, so it would look really shit against
That
the
is so
sponsor.
fucked.
So she basically said I
Yeah,
wasn't
but
allowed to say it, and then she had like the commentators were like speculating, oh, maybe she she couldn't handle the pressure of this LAN event and stuff, and she just lost the game because the game wasn't working, which is like almost comically like ridiculous. But then it goes like serious. So she said that she felt her dream and opportunities ripped away because of the issues, and she said that kind of basically after that happened, she left. She went to her hotel and she was just basically on her hotel on her own, just kind of like stewing in all this shit that she'd gone through, and basically said that was like the trigger of like a downward spiral over months that ended up with her like having a suicide attempt. And this was like kind of the first stages that set those events in motion, from what she said. So pretty crazy stuff. And actually, yeah, with the Sky Broadband thing as well, I think it was Frankie Ward said that Sky Broadband, I don't know how these guys would, like the sponsor would be involved in this part, but she said there was a non-compete clause from Sky Broadband that also meant that when you're working for Guild, the way she explained it, it sounded like they wouldn't let you work for anybody else. So you could you're only working for us while you're covering these events, and then that might be fine if they're paying you, and if they're not paying you, but you've got this clause that means you can't work elsewhere, you're fucked. So that seems to be the issue,
Pretty
like
much, yeah.
all these massive issues that they've had. So just a bit of a mess, really, that org, and yeah, a shame that it's gone in the way it has. Because I saw like a lot of messages, a lot of replies on it that were like, seemed to have nice memories of these tournaments. Like maybe a lot of the people that did compete in them, it was nice they got to compete in these like women's only tournaments and stuff, and it was a space for them to compete in. And I think they had like a physical space in London that they would do stuff at as well. So yeah, it looks like there was like these kind of like good things, or like maybe some good intentions behind it, but just completely fumbled. And there we go. So nice to have a depressing story towards the end here. Is there anything you've seen over the last couple of weeks?
It is really fucking depressing though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could have gone so well because I used to be a big fan of Guild. Like I didn't know any of the other shit that they've done, but they used to have a really strong Game Changers team. Like I think the first year of Game Changers in Yumi, it was basically between G2 and Guild, like all the time. So yeah, it's a bit tragic that what started so well. Like I mean, yes, the players are still doing well, like a lot of them for both the GC and the Challengers team, but yeah, it's a bit fucked up to be honest. Like all this shit happening because I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
to me, it was a bit eye opening. It's very depressing though. Yeah.
For sure. Have you seen any random things you've seen that have made you smile that we could have one nicer thing to talk about before the end? Because I think I'm through all of my prearranged stuff.
Well, I mean, there is good news. Pacific players have all gotten their visa somehow,
yes.
so
I missed that. That's a good one.
that is very good news because I was really worried about Patman because I think somebody else has spoken about it. I think Mika Fabs who does hosting at Masters and Champions, so she's also Filipino, and on Instagram she talks a lot about how atrocious the visa part is for Filipinos, and like getting a Schengen in general is like so freaking difficult. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that it worked out. I think that it's a concerning issue throughout Asia, to be honest, like especially Southeast Asia or South Asia. Like, if you want to be very explicit, it's countries that are in Singapore, Japan, Korea, or I guess to some degree Thailand as well. But yeah, any Southeast Asian country kind of like struggles more in terms of visas, especially if you don't have like an agreement with the Schengen region, or I think Malaysia has one. Malaysia has like visa free access. But yeah, depending on the country, you suffer.
Yeah.
So it's very nice that Patman things managed to work out for him. But also RRQ, I think they had some trouble, or there were some questions with Crazy Guy and Zephyro and players like that. So I'm glad that everybody from Pacific has been able to get a visa and is showing up. That's my good news of the week. What about you?
That's a good one. I think we should. Yeah, it's worth clarifying like how, because I don't think they've. Maybe like I don't think they've all like said we've got our visas for chance, but if what had been said before was that there was a worry, like I think people had their visas to go to Tokyo, but the worry was that if they were waiting for
they would not get it back. Yeah,
exactly. So they had to basically their passport when you're getting a visa, your passport is with the
Mm-hmm.
authorities, and you don't get it back until you got your visa. So they wouldn't be able to go to Tokyo if they were still waiting for their visa to Paris. So the fact that everyone went to Tokyo seems to be like nailed on confirmation that everyone got their visas, they've all got their
Yeah.
passports back, and fingers crossed, there's no bullshit with Paris, and no Nat situation hopefully
100%.
from last time.
I think one more good news would be that after I think that for PRX something this weekend was a bit of a healing moments for him, because you remember in 2023 when PRX made Tokyo and Bro couldn't go because he didn't get a visa in time for Masters Tokyo, and it was really sad because PRX came third I think in that tournament with a substitute. So if he was there, it would have they could have probably done even better. Like no shade on TGRS, but yeah, something not being able to make it there, especially considering that this man got his start in the Japanese region, right? He started off as a duelist for I forgot which team, but this guy basically almost carried like a team all the way to like I don't think there was a VCT Ascension circuit then, but yeah, this guy was really popping off, and then Paper X signed him, and yeah, they were like, look, this is our boy now. So it was a bit heartbreaking that he couldn't compete in Masters Tokyo, but he got MVP this weekend in Tokyo. So 2 years later, the
Yeah,
circle completes. So that is some more good news I have, at least for Paper X fans.
yeah, very nice. And also, yeah, on MVPs, was on his wedding anniversary. I think he said on the broadcast as well. So
Oh,
that was quite nice. Um, and so I was watching it in the living room, and my fiance was in the room, and she's like not particularly into like esports. She's a gamer, and yeah, but she just like doesn't. She's not particularly invested. And when he said it was his anniversary, she didn't have like the kind of reaction. She was like, why the fuck is he playing? It's their anniversary. But yeah, that was quite funny. And I told her it's his
honestly,
gift to his
I don't know whose side
wife.
I take here, because I am an esports player, but I also, I see her
It's
points.
understandable,
So,
yeah.
but I think that would be kind of the best feeling if you're somebody like Nats. You play your game, you get a quick 3-0 in, and then go celebrate your anniversary with your wife. He did it for her, bro. He wanted to go spend time with his wife. That's why
That's
he
what I
got a
said. Yeah,
3-0.
yeah.
It's easy. That's the story.
But yeah, maybe just one last thing we could chat on then. That we
Uh,
hinted earlier was um really just a situation of the stage 2 finals, and Americas and EMEA being in like 200 seat studios essentially. Um,
oh God, yeah.
because yeah, so we obviously had Pacific in Tokyo, and that looked like insane. Like the atmosphere looked sick. Um, China, I don't know where their final was, but they had an arena final. Also looked pretty insane. And then we have Americas and EMEA again, just in like just in their own little studio.
Sweet little zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we make of
Yo,
that? Because
Pacific finals
it's
were so fire. Like Seoul was already quite nice, but the Tokyo crowd was insane. You could hear them like roaring at every single thing. And the Japanese commentators, like I was actually listening to them a little bit. They have so much energy. Like I don't understand half of it, but whatever little I do get from all those years of watching anime is very helpful.
yeah,
It's so fun to listen to them, and they're so high energy. Like the crowd, the arena, everything. Like I think someday I really want to go to like a Masters or Champions in Tokyo, because I feel like they have that aura.
yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like for the players, if I was a player, like when you're just playing in the same studio every week, it almost doesn't like it doesn't feel special. You know what I mean? Like if you're an aspiring player and you're dreaming about going and being a pro and winning tournaments, half the tournaments you can win, you only do it in like I mean there is a crowd, but you don't dream of like winning a tournament in a studio. And I get why they wouldn't do it every time. Like for every stage, it's expensive. I'm pretty sure like from what I've heard, like I don't think they usually make money when they do these arena things. If anything, maybe it probably costs them money. But then
Hmm.
it almost feels like just what like for example, when I'm watching Team Liquid lift the trophy, I don't feel like those players are like massively over the moon. Like obviously they're all happy and no one looked disappointed to win, but I didn't see anyone that looked like they were absolutely ecstatic to have won a trophy, and they just won a they've just won a big event. Like that should be a big event. It should feel like they've done a massive achievement to win stage two, and it just doesn't feel like that, and it doesn't look like the players feel like that in my from my perspective. And it's just I don't know. It's just really underwhelming. Like I don't feel like anyone. You don't get into this kind of work to do things on this kind of scale. I don't know. It's just it feels like so anticlimactic to not have anything. And the thing is, like, it doesn't even have to be a massive arena, because I can understand also, like, you don't want to. Maybe you're worried you can't fill out an arena or something. It doesn't even need to be huge. If like this, the EMEA studio, for example, has like 200 seats. I think I'm pretty sure the Americas one is roughly the same. I'm sure
Mm.
they could find somewhere to do like 1,000. Like they could do a small theater with 1,000 seats, and I'm sure they could find places to fill that. In Americas at the
Yeah, I
very
mean, it's
least, maybe
Berlin,
EMEA
right?
could be harder, but
No,
Americas, I'm
but
sure they
even
could do that.
Berlin, like, it's not like it's a problem, you know? Berlin's a city with a lot of areas you can do if you just aren't intent on using like the same LEC studio again and again.
I think just
But
that the way they probably got that, like last year in the LEC, they did so they've kind of switched to this like one finals per year model, and last year they did it in Munich, and it was in like a big arena,
Mhm.
and it was very empty. Like maybe they filled like half of it for
Ooh.
the grand finals, and I think like what the feeling there was like the fact that it's still in like it's also in Germany when it's always in Germany anyway, meant that if you were gonna like go to travel, maybe you've probably done it at some point anyway if you were planning on going there, and it just like didn't feel different enough if that makes sense. So and
Mhm.
it depends who gets to the final, but I don't know, like I feel like you could do one in um I don't know, I feel like there's plenty of countries, like you could do one in Turkey, I'm sure you could do one in probably in Spain, in France, and get 1 or 2 thousand
We were
people.
so, we were so close to having like the VCT EMEA host city in Barcelona and not Berlin. We could have had Barcelona. We could have had good weather. We could have had tapas on the beach, but no,
And the
we're in
players wouldn't
Berlin
be
with the
depressed
rain.
about the living situation the whole time.
Yeah, like, dude, every single EMEA interview that I've done, almost every single one of them has shit talk the weather. Like, it's insane. They hate the weather in Berlin, which I mean I can't blame them. Like, I've been to Berlin. It's fucking depressing for like 9 months of the year. I can't blame them, but also we could have had Barcelona. It's just nice to think
The only
about,
one
VCT by the beach.
I asked it to Penny a couple of like a month ago or so, and he was like he liked it. I think I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was like yeah, I quite like Berlin. Like I think he said his family's from the UK, so he's used to European cities. Um, but because that's what you hear with a lot
Ah,
of them. Like
yes, public
they're like I came here and I'm just like
food.
yeah, I can't order any food. Basically, it sounds like they're like prisoners in their apartments. And he was like, yeah, I get it. Penny was just saying like, yeah, I came here. I knew how to use a transport. I just went exploring the city, and yeah, it's really nice. I think like I'm pretty sure the
Sadak was
rest of people just
happy
do
as
that.
well because
Yeah,
Sadak was like, I lived in LA and the food was so fucking unhealthy and everything was fried and shit. And then
yeah,
I moved here and now I cook my own meals. My wife and I cook all the time. He was so happy. I've lost so much weight. I don't even go to the gym, but look at me now.
yeah,
I was like, yeah, bro, holy shit. Damn. Well, what living in a functional, walkable city does for a motherfucker, you know?
yeah. Okay. Just on the arenas thing, I did so this time last year I was at the stage two finals, and I was able to interview Daniel Ringland, who is like I think he's the head of EMEA, head
Ooh.
of Valorant Esports for EMEA, and
Stupendous, right?
yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah,
stupendous.
and I didn't specifically ask him about doing an arena, but I think at that point the America's finals for stage two, I think they were having like watch parties or 1 or 2 watch parties in different places. So there was that because that's another option as well. Maybe even the at least the final should be somewhere else. But if you have to have it in the studio, because I get that you've custom built the studio and it would cost them so much money to not do
I
it
think they
there.
did have a watch party for Americas, like aside from the studio, because I remember seeing like a bunch of people. I saw Golden Boy and Mimi tossing some stuff into the crowd. So
I think
I
they
think they
do
did have
like
like a couple
they
of other
also
watch
do
parties.
things like
Yeah.
outside. I think sometimes like in like the basically in the car park. I can't
Hmm.
remember what they call it,
Whatever
tailgate or
extra
something like that.
space you have.
Yeah, but it's so. this time last year, I'd asked him about even having like these watch parties, and he did highlight that. I think last year Foot did host one earlier in the season, and he said ultimately, I think for fans to attend an event that's run by the team they love is actually a bit cooler than to attend one that we run. So for sure, we'll keep encouraging teams to operate those. We've got a lot of teams with pretty big fan bases that run all sorts of events, so hopefully we'll do more. They haven't done more, so there have not been any.
Hopefully, I would.
Yeah, the whole season there's not been
Sorry,
anything.
go.
But EMEA at least, there's not been anything that wasn't in the Riot Studio. There's no, I don't think there's been any of these kind of watch parties or any equivalent. So it's like just reduced, if
Shout out to
anything.
Slicky. Tarek of EMEA. Bro is carrying the region with his watch parties for real. Like, shout out to Slicky. Yeah, but I agree with you. I think that I think last year they had a couple of those because I remember that for Champions at least they had a watch party in a couple of cities. Like they had one in Barcelona, they had one in a couple of other places in 2023 as well. So they did have a couple of those activations for Champions. Hopefully we have those happening again this year. But yeah, I think for the rest of the year, like you said, it was pretty quiet for EMEA.
Yeah.
I think that the region that does a really good job with this is Pacific, just because there are so many freaking countries.
Yeah.
Just like EMEA, and unlike EMEA, I feel like EMEA is a little bit more unified. Aside from, I mean, of course, you could make the joke that everyone's like, a bit mean to each other sometimes, but overall, like they seem fairly like vibey. But I think that for Pacific at least, even if they all get along on the server, because of the linguistic differences and their, everything being so far apart compared to Europe, I think that they also like to have like home watch parties in each region. Like I think Malaysia does it, Singapore does it, Indonesia does it, and there's also
Yeah.
like regional broadcasts and stuff. So I actually don't know if EMEA has continued to have those regional broadcasts, like the multilingual ones. Do they still have the French and the German streams going on, or
Yeah,
is
I'm
it
not
just
sure if,
English right
or
now?
they do. I mean, at the very least, they'd have co-streams. I don't know if I know there's some. I don't know about in Valorant. I know in League of Legends there's some things where they have like trimmed off the number of like official broadcast languages, and then they just leave it to the co-streamers to pick that up instead. Which, to be fair, kind of seems like how they're going with the broadcast in general sometimes. But what's maybe interesting and still like frustrating that they didn't do it for Valorant is that in League this year they felt like in the LEC it feels like they kind of cracked the code on doing more arena things where they basically had these two like home stands basically like what T1 has had. I think T1 did one in Valorant as well, or they like mixed a League of Legends and and Valorant one. But in the LEC in League of Legends they let Koi and Carmine Corp have their own like homestand events where basically what it was 1 week or 1 weekend of the regular season. It would be hosted by one of those teams in their own country. So
Ooh.
Koi hosted one in Madrid, and basically they let Koi kind of invite the other teams. So I think it was like Koi, Giant X, G2, and Fnatic. Basically, all it meant was like those 2 days, it was only those teams that played, and they just kind of shuffled the schedule around that. And then it meant that you had Koi fans, but also like Giant X had shitloads of fans there, and then Fnatic and G2 have fans pretty much everywhere. So you had this one-off event that was like just a regular season, but it felt like so much more. It felt more significant than the final because the final of that split was in the studio. And you had like
Ooh.
the 200 people there. Yet this random regular season game was in front of like 10,000 people, and the vibes were like insane. And then yeah, Carmine Corp did the same thing in France. I think that
AC's events are insane.
yeah, and I think that one had. I think that also maybe had G2, and then it had like Team Vitality and one other team. I can't remember who it was. And that kind of seemed to be like the way that they'd figured it out. The obvious issue there is that it's still not the finals, and then if you don't do the finals in an arena, it does look a bit silly. But also it helps
Yeah.
to make sure you get firstly the fact that you just get fans to go because it's run by their team and they want to go and represent their team. And if their team doesn't get to the grand final, then maybe they don't go to that. So it helps to make sure that's covered, and also then like the atmosphere is insane because they're there cheering their team, and it's Koi and Carmine Corp who are the two teams with like the biggest fan bases. So that that format seemed to work really well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe try and do that in Valorant as well. The issue there is that like maybe Koi and Karmine Corp aren't as successful in Valorant just yet as they have been in League of Legends. So it'd be up to like maybe Fnatic to run one, but then their fan base isn't located in one specific place to kind of pack something like that. So that's where again it's difficult. But at the end of the day, I think we just in some capacity there needs to be more like in-person events that aren't just in the studio, just to make it firstly more interesting, but also engage people as well. Like that's how you get like more grassroots engagement in it, is by having events where people can go, and then that's what gets them hooked into it really. Yeah, maybe let's finish with one final thing then, which is the Champs bundle has been revealed.
Ooh.
And maybe I think we got the trailer here. Let me play it on mute and we'll leave that running. But it looks pretty sick, and it looks like it's got some sort of thing depending on like how many kills you're getting. I don't know. Did you read the actual post on it? Because I actually didn't read the like Riot's post that maybe explained the things about it more. But yeah, so it looks sick. And yeah, throughout this like trailer, it shows clips of. Here you go. So it's showing clips of like counting down when they're getting kills, and then at the end of it, once they've got whatever number of kills they need, like the look of it kind of changes and it's more like shiny and all that. Yeah, it looks pretty sick. Are you buying?
I haven't bought a single one, and I don't think I will at any point. I didn't even buy the 2023 one, and that was the one that convinced me. That got me the closest to buying it. So, okay, I am a person who does not believe in buying things unless they're on the night market. So I'll tell you the skins that I have, and you'll probably laugh at me. So my first ever night market, I got the most fire night market that you'll ever think of. Okay, I got the Oni Phantom at 40% off, and the Prime Mandel at like 38% off. So that's my rifle skins done. And then the next one. Or the one after that, I don't remember which one. I think I got a Origin Operator and a Ghost. Again at like 30, 35, 40% off. And then I think the only things that I bought at full price were like my knife skins. I have two knives. I got the Origin because it's very spinny and it's like a fidget spinner in game, and I love spinny things. And the Reaver Karambit for the same reason, because it's spinny. And what else? I think that's about it. And I got a classic because I just need a classic skin. So the only skin that I need to buy is a Stinger because I use it a lot. Oh, and I got the Ion Sheriff like last night market, so that was also 45% off. Everything that I bought has been on discount, by the way, like an insane discount. So, yeah, I'm not spending full price on a Champs bundle. Yeah, I was a little tempted, but not really. Maybe if the song is really good, sure. But I didn't buy a Die for You or Ticking Away, and those two are like my favorite anthems by far. So I really doubt I'm gonna be getting it, but it does look really good. I do have friends who will buy it, so I know for the next few months I'm gonna be like, "Yo, drop me a gun, please. Yo, drop me a gun, please."
Yeah. That's the thing, yeah. If your mates have got
I'm
it, then
shameless.
that's fine. You just follow them and pick it up at the very least as well.
Exactly.
I
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask them like, "Yo, I'll pay you. Just drop me the gun," you know. But what I do like about the gun here is the finisher, because it's a very interactive finisher. I like the golds. You can just like I know there's gonna be a lot of like really weird drawings after like the round is over. I can already see my like my fight stack that I play with drawing like embarrassing pictures. But I think it'll be funny at the very least. Imagine like taking down a team and you win and you got the finisher and you just draw like I don't know, like a dick or something. It'll be hilarious. There's so much potential for this finisher, just this finisher.
What's your classic? Surely it's Paper X.
Well, RGX actually. I bought it because I bought it like 2 years ago. So no, I actually I'm not buying a classic from Paper X until they win champs. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So if they win
it's
champs
my
this year, you
promise
buy.
to myself.
So you don't buy, but do you buy the champs
100%.
bundle if Paper X wins champs?
No, I'll buy the Paper X classic. Well, why would I buy the champs bundle? I'll buy their own classic. It looks pretty anyway. But yeah, no, I don't think I will ever buy like a champions bundle unless like I win like a giveaway or something. So I just you need to understand, Lee, that whatever money I make, it either goes into traveling or it goes into buying books. There's like I have like very little money left for like games, like skins. Of course, every Steam sale I spend a stupid amount of money on games that I won't play, but
Yeah.
I don't know, like it's so ingrained in me, like do not spend money on skins, especially in Valorant, because in CS at least you can resell them. What do you do with these? Like just hold
True.
on to them, I guess.
Exactly. I don't think I've spent money on like a league. I've not spent any money on a Valorant skin. I don't think I spent money on a league skin either. Probably for like 5 or 6 years.
Also, like nothing's gonna beat the Prime Vandal. Like, let's be real. The Prime Vandal and the Oni Phantom, yes, there are other skins that are like flashier and nicer, and sometimes you want to use something else, but they're like evergreen. You can never really go wrong with the Prime Vandal or the Oni Phantom. So I just don't have a reason to buy a skin. Like, think about it.
Fair enough. But yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the same kind of thing. Like, I think it was once I had started to save money for a house, it was like, okay, I'm not spending any money on shit that I don't need. So that's not even just like skins. Like, even I never even look at the Steam sales anymore. That's how much of a grown up I am. I buy,
Oh my
I
god.
basically buy like, I'll buy Football
True
Manager
adults.
every year. I'll buy Football Manager on release every year. And to be fair, I'll usually pay pretty much full price, but then I know I'm going to play that game for like 400 hours over the next year and easily get my money's worth. And then that's like the one thing I'll spend my money on. So when you see these surveys, like the average gamer spends £1,000 per year, and I'm thinking like I'm doing my best to reduce that average because
Wow.
mine will be like
Yeah, exactly.
mine will be like 50 quid a year on the one game, and then and that's
Pretty
basically
much
it.
the same. Yeah, exactly. Like, well, I'll probably spend like 100 on like maybe one or two games, but I buy a lot of like really small indie titles for the most part. Like one $60 game, and everything else is like below 10 usually. So
Yeah,
yeah,
except like
I feel you. Like we are doing our part to bring down the average
exactly. Maybe
for
like once a
the
year go
spending in the
to
gaming industry.
CEX, which is the shop in the UK where there's like it's all like pre-owned
We
games.
have that here too, like for the
Oh yeah,
used games, right? For used
yeah, yeah.
CDs.
Oh,
We got
actually,
that
yeah,
here.
it's here in Spain as
I
well.
love that.
Um, and yeah, you just raid that, like spend like 20 quid and buy like 4 or 5 games. Best way to do it.
I think I still remember like that was because I think my parents got like an Xbox One so my sibling could play like Just Dance. And I was in college and I was really broke, so I couldn't buy any of the new CDs. So I would just go down to CEX and find whatever I could for the Xbox One. I think
Exactly.
like yeah, I got all of these old classic games that ran for like hundreds of hours. Like I think I got games like I got Black Flag. I got like a bunch of other really long games that you could just sit and play for
Yeah, and
hours
get your
on
money's
end.
worth.
And it was great because exactly, like $60 games, like the CD is being sold for what, like 5, something like that. So you just grab it and play it for like hours on it. It's amazing. It's such a good deal.
Sure. I think that's all we've got for today then. Thanks for your time, Zach.
Mhm.
Glad. I'm happy for
Oh,
you
thank
that
you.
PaperX won. And yeah, I guess
Let's
next
hope they win
time
champs.
we see you guys, it will probably be during camps. I'm just looking at the calendar. Yeah, it'll probably be like
Champions
the
right before, I think. Right
uh
before.
well next week is probably a league week. We'll see. Maybe we do some shenanigans
Mhm.
and shuffle it around. But yeah, there we go. So thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe and like and all those usual things. And yeah, we'll see you next time. See ya.